Hello, this is Tori.
I'm Diego.
I'm Amanda.
We're going to be talking about the editing of Meshes in the Afternoon and Breathless. Let's start with what each of us discussed in prep, which is jump cuts.
I think throughout Meshes in the Afternoon, there's just a plethora of jump cuts. They're used pretty heavily, I think, throughout. I mean, there's like other forms, but I think that's like definitely one of the ones that stood out the most and is the most common.
The one I not only liked, but clearly had significance to the plot, actually, was how when she enters the house and there's a knife on the stairs and how much focus is put on that knife. And as we later find out, it is extremely relevant to the plot and will have other points there. And there was just so much emphasis, but in general, those stairs in general, there were lots of jump cuts with them. Like how when she's struggling to get up the stairs, like she's really trying so hard. And then there's the other figure in the bedroom. We keep shifting from the bedroom to her on the stairs. And that was very interesting to see.
Mm-hmm.
What other ideas stood out?
There was one jump cut that stood out to me. I don't know if it necessarily had any like value to the plot, but when I believe she like fell out of the window or something, and it kind of cut to her just getting wrapped up, and it's like kind of pushing through all the curtains. I don't really know why, but that one just stuck with that. Like that one just stuck with me for a lot of the movie. I thought it was really interesting and kind of cool to see.
I think the different sorry. Oh my god. Okay. Sorry, there's like I don't know. The cuts of her going like the different spots of her on the stairs. I think that was supposed to like represent like how eventually there's like multiple versions of her in the same room, and it's kind of like a prelude to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the use of jump cuts is pretty good throughout like the movie. Because I think, like to me, anyways, the movie just it was weird. It was a weird movie. I think to say the least. Not in like a bad way. I enjoyed it, but I think it was definitely just like it was very different. And I think like it was maybe a little like chaotic. And I think the use of jump cuts kind of like helps that because they're very like fast and very sporadic and kind of just like happen, right? And I think that helps a lot with like the style or like the feel of the movie.
Mm-hmm. I believe one of you mentioned, I think it was you, Diego, during prep mentioned the mirror on the beach and then its later appearance.
Yeah, it was like a bit of I think it was a match cut, because the woman who I don't know her name, but she hits the man with like what seems to be it looked like a hammer, but it could have been like the knife. I didn't really get a good look at it, but she hits the man, and then it kind of changes to her like hitting, I guess, the camera or like a mirror or something like some form of glass, and then immediately after that, it cuts to like pieces of glass and like a mirror just shattering onto the beach. So I thought I thought it looked cool, and I believe it was a match cut because of like how there was a mirror in one scene and then immediately in the next.
Yeah, like you said, overall, it was a very different, very interesting film, which is in and of itself interesting because considering the fact that this wasn't even the experimental film of the two, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
So we can come back to Meshes in the Afternoon because there's, of course, less to say about this given how short it is. So we'll come back. Let's move on to Breathless and what editing appeared in Breathless.
Mm-hmm. There were.
Don't worry, you're fine.
All right.
Not very loud.
My brother. Um, there definitely was like a different use of jump cuts in Breathless. It was kind of more, not more subtle, but like they used it when like during stiff. Oh my god.
When
They
like naturally, maybe.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Uh, I would agree. I think the way they used it definitely differs to the way that they were used in meshes. Because it kind of helps the story flow a bit more, and like you don't have to see like kind of very, I guess it cuts out like kind of some like pointless shots of just like people walking or something, then kind of like cuts straight to like an important scene, like an action scene. So I think they flowed a lot. It made a lot more sense, I think.
There were a couple of unnatural jump cuts from what I remember. Like some of it just like made it, I don't know if it was probably on purpose, but some of the film just felt a little choppy because of how many jump cuts they tried to fit in one like sequence, I guess.
Mhm.
And it like I feel like it could have been a little more natural with like maybe use of like go like moving the camera to a different angle instead of like having it cut to like it's something completely different.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they kind of maybe could use a bit more like of the camera, I guess, rather than like cuts. But I don't think it was like too like noticeable. But definitely showed up a good bit.
Yeah. A different form of editing that I saw that I really, really liked was the point of view when he's driving the car. Do you guys remember that? He's on the road and then we see like as if we were him, but not even that because we don't see the inside of the car. We just see the road. So he kind of has we kind of have his view and then he starts shooting things. It was really, really interesting. I really liked that. And I also really liked the lack of editing when he's walking down the road talking to Patricia and like how the camera is like moving as they're talking and following them. Like, let's say they're standing here and they're walking and the camera's right here and like the camera's moving as they move. I really like something like that. That did make it feel a lot more natural as well.
Yeah, I like that too. I think going back to what you said earlier about the, I guess, like not like first person type of thing, but like where you get the view of the character. There's another scene that showed up that I like the use of where I think he was on the run from the police, or I don't know if he's on the run from the police, but his like photo was in like, the newspaper, and I think either the cop was like walking like right in front of him and he just hid behind the newspaper and you could kind of see like from his eyes him like watching them. I thought that was kind of cool. I like that scene a good bit.
I think with the car scene, I think it was made so that you were the passenger because like you would still see the road in front of you in first person if you were the passenger. And then like you're looking to the left while he's talking to presumably no one. And like just like the only exception I think would be when he shoots the cop. That's a little more like either like you got out of the way somehow or there was no one there in the first place and he's like hallucinating someone there. I don't know.
I think the movie kind of starts out in a similar fashion where he's like talking to the camera about like how he's like he said that he was like an asshole that he can't help it or something. I don't know if I don't remember if he was talking to himself or he was talking to the camera.
Mm.
Oh, I think another thing, I think there was a cutaway shot, I believe, when he shot the cop, because you kind of like you like saw you saw him shoot the cop, but like it was a little weird because you just saw him like pull out his gun, and I can't really remember if you see him like shoot it and if there's like a sound, but I just remember like him pulling out the gun and like it just kind of cuts to the cop just like falling over and rolling into a ditch. And I thought that was like, I don't know if that was intentional or not, because it seemed like just a little weird that they wouldn't like kind of, I don't know, put a little bit more detail into that, especially since like it was such a important scene, like considering like the end of the film. So
So even with just like not even cuts, like what other editing that was rather different from what you've seen in other films, like what editing stood out to you, would you say?
Some of the editing when they were in the apartment stood out to me, I think, where like it would suddenly either stop focusing on them and it would focus on either like the window or the radio and they were out of the picture entirely, or this may be cinematography, but I'm not sure how like the camera was in different angles throughout the room at points.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
it
that was
didn't
definitely
just stay in one spot.
something that I kind of noticed and threw me off a little bit. Especially, I think they panned up to like they were having a conversation. I forgot what it was, but they panned up to one of the posters on the wall, and it didn't necessarily. I didn't really see how it would have connected to the like what they were saying. So it kind of threw me off a bit. I don't know. I think I'm not sure if that'd be more focused towards cinematography than editing, but that's definitely something that stood out. And like a lot of the apartment scene felt very dragged out. I guess like a lot of the conversations felt like really long and like it was just kind of one continuous shot, which I thought was kind of interesting.
I think it was like meant to be something in real time.
Hmm.
It's like normally in like things take longer than they are in movies because they have to cut it short to feature length. And this film was feature length, but they were able to like put that in there. I don't know if it was like more filler or like just like I remember looking up like I know that the guy was hiding in there from like the police.
Hmm.
So I guess they maybe wanted to emphasize that, like trying to like stay out of like in that moment, just like staying out of public eye for a bit.
Hmm.
It wasn't
And
as
then,
much as possible because he does go out,
yeah,
but yeah.
I think they also did it to maybe focus, like maybe emphasize the relationship that the two of them had. 'Cause I think repeatedly in the scene he talked about how he like really wanted to have sex with her. And so I think that's also like why they kind of dragged out the conversation. But some of the things that they're talking about just didn't, I don't know, they didn't really connect. But I think going back to what you said about how they're hiding from the police, I think doing that in real time would make sense because like it could make it feel like if you're hiding from the police, it could maybe make it feel like time is taking a lot longer to pass than it actually is, and they could be like trying to represent that by like not having as many cuts or like having like one long and continuous scene.
Yeah, and like I feel like even in that scene, like coming back to my point about the camera moving, I do feel like there was more camera movement there than usual. Like even like usually when you're in like a scene in one room, like the camera might jump from one perspective to the other, but it felt like it was sharing like both of their faces, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Another shot I really liked was when the guy, I don't remember who he was, but he was looking in the newspaper and then he notices that he's sitting there in the car and like someone finally recognizes him and we get that little shot from him reading the newspaper to him in the car. Like that kind of like in between shots that like kind of slowly zooms in. It was really interesting.
Mhm.
I think it also like Was that also the scene where they showed someone talking to the police, like a separate like woman recognizing him, and then talking? I remember something like
Yeah, it
that.
was like right after that, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
like
think it was the dude talking to the police. that
oh
recognized him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like the fact that they were like in like the corner
Mhm.
Yeah, they were.
while he was in the car,
Mhm.
that definitely like added something.
That was
Yeah, I
definitely
think
a
they.
piece of dramatic irony.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think it definitely kept that because I think he just left the scene, and I think he like they kind of kept it on it for like a little bit longer to kind of point that out.
Mhm.
Um, what else? Um,
How would this compare to like the other film? Like, are there really comparisons to make with the two besides having jump cuts?
That's a great question. I think I think something like more like clear is that Breathless's editing was much more subtle than Meshes in the Afternoon. Like Meshes in the Afternoon was as though like the extreme editing was like part of the story itself. Whereas Breathless, the editing was made in a way to make it a little more real, a little more normal, but also show that it was using editing to tell its story as well.
mhm. I think that would probably be the biggest comparison is like the way that they used the editing and the way that that kind of impacted like the flow of the movie and how it, I guess, how that kind of related to the narrative, like the overall plot. But I don't really see any other ways that it would connect. At least I don't. I don't know about you guys.
Speaking of meshes, coming back to that, what did you guys think of the editing? Like how the key in the mouth became the knife? That kind of editing, like I was like, geez. And I was trying to like piece together what the key could symbolize. Like we knew the knife symbolized like killing and death, but how does the key connect to that? Like how did that make you guys feel?
Question.
I didn't. I didn't really pay it much mind, to be honest. I think I definitely paid more attention to the knife in that scene.
Yeah, that coming back to that editing in general, like everything was changing. Like first, the figure is just a figure in a big black cloak, and then out of nowhere, oh, it's her, and then out of nowhere, it's this other man, and then we see like a bunch of her, and then it keeps switching, like the mirror face person, and then the mirror breaks. It was very all over the place, but that was clearly intentional.
Was the mirror person supposed to be her?
That's what's I'm wondering because like first it's a
I
mirror, then we see her. Like it's so confusing. What do you think, Diego? I hear you.
I thought it was the husband, just because they kind of had the same like figure, like they're both kind of like the same height and same like build. So I just thought based off of like looks alone that it was the husband, but uh, that was about it.
I feel like I feel like the crazy editing was trying to make me think of like some symbolic story, like me trying to put all the pieces of a puzzle together. When in reality, there probably was no puzzle that had pieces to be put together. And I was just trying to figure this whole thing out. And I'm like, there's too much going on for me to figure it out.
Mhm. Uh, I think one interesting thing was the use of sound in the movie, because like obviously there wasn't any like dialogue, uh, but there was like still a lot of sound, like the kind of eerie and ominous like music in the background that played between like individual cuts. Definitely like helped with the atmosphere of the film of like just kind of crazy, I guess, and maybe a little chaotic. But I think also one thing that I noticed that kind of stood out to me was the in the very beginning when the woman went to unlock her door and she drops the key. It's very like the sounds of the key were very like the falling were very they were very like I guess extra, like more than I would kind of expect the key to have when it dropped. And I thought it was kind of interesting that they would put that much emphasis on it.
Like that also
what do you guys
comes
think?
to editing. Like editing, that's the sound effects. I believe that's a part of Foley, which I'm assuming you guys know what Foley is. So how most sound effects are made by something that is not even what it's portraying. And like, so I'm assuming that maybe that sound wasn't even made with a key because they wanted it to be dramatic. That was clearly like the intention. But in reality, that key had no real meaning other than when it turns into the knife, which nothing is much going on with the knife other than like a killing. So that was really interesting too.
I think the sound, I honestly did not like pick up any sound effects. I thought it was all just part of the music. And like, I'm wondering if the music was composed like before or after the film was shot. I don't know if sorry, I don't know what, sorry, hold on, something's going on outside my house.
No worries.
Okay. I don't know. It seemed very like, I don't know if the music really fit. I feel like it kind of did, but like the music was just really off-putting for me and like didn't really make, I didn't enjoy it. I don't think it really represented what was going on. I could be wrong, but that's just like how I saw it.
I think for me, I agree that it didn't really fit, but I think that might have maybe been like the point, maybe, is to like not have it necessarily fit and make you like maybe not, I don't know if on edge, but like maybe a little uncomfortable or something.
Yeah.
Because it didn't like
had horror aspects to it, like definitely like kind of horror inspired, if not is horror. And we all know iconic sounds of horror, music in horror is known to be very unsettling, very odd, something else. Like take Psycho stabbing shower scene, like it just goes
right.
like
Right, yeah.
But I definitely agree that it might not have been. I think it did fit, but I think it didn't fit like on purpose. I think that was intentionally done. What else?
I don't have anything else if you guys do.
as I go over moods, we made some very great points. Talk about what I found very interesting, which I feel like we can allude to editing in a sense, was both of you during prep were talking about how you both kind of, if you had to pick, you both preferred Breathless, whereas I said I preferred Meshes of the Afternoon. And that's when I think about how editing, like the way you edit something is very stylistic, and it can also come from a place of preference as well. What do you guys think?
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the reason that I preferred Breathless was because I guess it just flowed better and it kind of made sense in my head, like what was happening. I understood what was happening and like why it was happening, but with Meshes, nothing really made a whole lot of sense. Some of it made sense, obviously, but like
Yeah,
there are some
there's
parts
also
that
that
definitely were pretty confusing.
mystery element that's just looming over.
Right.
And
So I think
that.
I think definitely like the cause of kind of both of those feelings was like the stylistic choices that they made in editing. So
Yeah. So editing is it's a very great part of the movie process. We'd be nowhere if it weren't for editing.
that is very true.
All right. Any final thoughts, guys?
I don't have any.
Me neither.
All right, well,
Sick.
good on all of us for doing very great despite the circumstances of today. All right.
Cool.
Hasta la vista.
Yep.